Hi, everybody. Welcome to our live special called Revenge of the Label Monster. We're going to read a little story today, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Wow, that's the worst labeling I've ever seen. Natalie couldn't stop staring at the return product from Red Rum's customer. There were 5 different problems with the labeling on one product. Number 1, the lot code printed on the box was wrong. The print was barely legible due to smudging of the ink. There was a 2D barcode on the box where the UDI data matrix should be, but it was actually a QR reader code for downloading the user manual. And on the sterile inner pouch, the label fell off the box, or fell off the pouch. And that label wasn't even for the correct product. The good news is they didn't need to report a recall. However, that was only because the customer's QC team caught the problem during incoming inspection. Mr. Kubrick, the CEO of Red Rum, hired Medical Device Academy to perform an internal audit of the company's processes for label control and labeling change control processes. Rob Packard assigned the audit to Natalie. But with 5 different problems on one box, she was in for a long day. To add to the pressure, Mr. Kubrick negotiated special payment terms. A $1,000 penalty would be charged if Natalie were unable to help the company identify the root cause. And she would personally receive a $1,000 bonus if she could assist them with creating a CAPA before 3 o'clock. It was Friday, October 31st, Halloween, and many employees wanted to leave early to take their children out for Halloween. Natalie didn't waste any time. No opening meeting checklist today. The people she needed to speak with were in the room, and she wanted to start now. Lorelei was the QC inspector who had signed the batch record to release the product to their customer. And Valerie was the operations manager in charge of production. They were both tall redheads, and they looked nervously across the table at Natalie while they waited for her to speak. Ladies, we'll skip the checklist today. Unlike most internal audits, where I primarily use turtle diagrams as a tool to help me plan audit questions, this audit is for cause. Therefore, I'll start with a brief interview using the turtle diagram, but then we'll use 2 other root cause analysis tools, a fishbone diagram and is not analysis, looking where you have problems and where you don't have problems. At the end of the day, 2 p.m., the 3 of us are going to sit down as a team and write your CAPA plan. And then at 2:30, we're going to present it to Mr. Kubrick together. Natalie immediately started asking questions to fill in her turtle diagram on her remarkable tablet. She learned that the return product was a new medical device produced by the company's second team shift, working from 4 p.m. to midnight. There were 10,000 units in the lot, and while the first team shifts typically produced only 7,000 units, Valerie insisted that the pressure to rush product out the door was the problem. But Natalie knew she needed to be objective and trust her process to be successful. Lorelei was quiet because she was embarrassed that she had released the product even though the inspection was done by the second shift team. After Natalie had gathered all the information she could by interviewing Lorelei and Valerie, she gave her boss a call. Hi, Rob. I've finished gathering information from the ladies here, but I'm not sure how to proceed from here. Reviewing procedures seems like a waste of time. You're absolutely right, Natalie. That's great intuition. The problems didn't happen by following a procedure. You can skip that part of your normal auditing routine. Instead, you want to spend as much time reviewing the production activities, the equipment, and the records from the return batch. What if I don't find the problem before the end of the day? Think positively. You're a great auditor, and they are really motivated to help you. They want to fix this problem, and fast. You have about 6 more hours before you meet with Mr. Kubrick. Just stay on the production floor and have people bring records to you. Your root cause analysis tools will find the source of the problems in plenty of time. Just relax and follow the process. You only need to identify causes, not solutions. Thank you, Rob. Any secret hints? Actually, yes. Make sure you verify they're using the correct label stock, label ribbon, and expect to see mix-ups at one or more places. Okay, thanks again. I'll get out there now. Natalie hung up the phone and waited by the door, or waited and pointed to the door. Lorelei and Valerie, can you take me to the production area so I can see where the labels are printed, stored, inspected, and applied? Valerie guided Natalie out to the production floor near the warehouse. She said, "This is where we print labels for both the production lines. But the product was returned and it was made on both lines in a batch. It looks like the production lines are printing labels on demand right now. What's the reason for printing labels in a batch?" Valerie explained that the printers can only print one label every 3 seconds. Therefore, they can keep up with a production line at 7,000 units per shift in a maximum line capacity of 8,400 labels in 7 hours. The second shift production line is new, and the line produced 10,000 units per shift. Therefore, one printer can't keep up with production. Natalie observed that the production line was only filling boxes with products sealed in labeled pouches. Where are the labels printed for the pouches that the product is sealed in? Valerie said those are printed at the other end of the line where the product comes out of the pass-through opening from the clean room. The three of them walked to the other end of the line, and Natalie saw an identical pair of printers, one on each line. In between the two pass-through openings, there was a rack filled with label stock and label ribbons. There was a variety of types of materials for thermal transfer printing of labels. Natalie asked Lorelei for the batch record of the return product, and she looked for where there was information about labeling. It's recorded on the batch record. She also looked in the back of the batch record for a copy of the labels. Natalie said, "Valerie, how do you know that the label stock, which label stock to use and which ribbons to use?" Valerie pointed to a part number on the batch record. The part number is pre-printed on the work order, and the operator that is setting up the printer writes down the lot number and the expiration date for each item. Okay, but to produce 10,000 labels, the person might need more than one box of blank label stock and more than one ribbon roll. Valerie thought about it and then took the batch record from Natalie, and she walked over to the operator at the printer and asked a few questions. She came back and said that the return lot had been printed on 2 different printers to print all the labels in a large batch. Natalie asked, "Is it possible for someone to grab the wrong label stock or the wrong ribbon for the second printer?" Valerie nodded slowly. Then Valerie handed one of the return boxes to the same operator and asked a few more questions. She returned. The operator confirmed that the wrong label stock was used for the box label. The correct ribbon would not have smudged because it was high-quality resin ribbon printing on the label stock with lamination. The box had a cheaper white label stock with no lamination, and the ink from the ribbon can smudge. Natalie smiled. "Congratulations, Valerie. You solved one of our mysteries. Now, can you tell me who verifies the lot information is correct?" Lorelei stepped forward and said that she does that with the operator. She asked the operator to read the information off the label, and then she checks it against the batch record. Natalie smiled again. "Congratulations, Valerie. You solved one of our mysteries. Now, can you tell me who verifies the lot information is correct?" Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the same paragraph again. Natalie smiled again and said, "Let me share a secret with you. Our brains sometimes hear what we expect to hear. The best way to manually verify the accuracy of the lot number on your label is to ask the operator to read the information backward. This forces us to focus on reading backward, and you are less likely to make a mistake during the verification. Since the information is manually entered and manually verified, the incorrect information for the lot number is probably just human error, which we can't really eliminate. Reading the lot number backward will help you catch that error when it happens." Lorelei smiled, and she didn't feel embarrassed anymore. Then Natalie asked Lorelei, "Let's walk back to the end of the production line to look at the box labels that were being printed." She pointed to the 2D barcode on the label and asked her if she knew what that was. Lorelei said, I think that's a QR reader code. Natalie said, both QR reader codes and UDIs can be printed as a 2D barcode. However, the UDI has a borderline on the left side and on the bottom of the barcode, while the QR reader code has a box in the bottom left, the top left, and the top right corners of the barcode. These barcodes have different information. The barcode being printed right now on the production line is also has human readable characters next to it, while the barcode on the return product is missing the human readable characters. This is another difference between the QR reader code used for the user manual and the UDI used to identify the model number of the product, the lot number, and the expiration date. Lorelei looked embarrassed again, and Natalie said, don't worry about it. You didn't know because nobody ever explained it. You just need a little training on the different barcodes. GS1 has some videos and blogs that explain UDI requirements. And QR readers can be scanned with your iPhone to make sure it's directing you to the EIFU for the product. If your labeling review and approval process for new products, you should be able to consider using a checklist of some kind to help you remember. Just rely on the checklist and have information in there on what you need to check to make sure it's accurate before you approve the new label. Then Natalie said, we have 3 of the problems identified. We only have 2 more to figure out. Now let's go back to the beginning of the line near the pass-through. And after another hour, the 3 ladies concluded that the reason for the sterile pouch falling off was simply that the label was applied to the wrong side of the pouch. The label was applied to the Tyvek side of the pouch instead of the clear side of the pouch. Unfortunately, the adhesive on the label stock was not aggressive enough to prevent it from falling off. Natalie explained that the company can't automatically assume that they don't need to repeat shelf life testing and shipping validation if they're making a new product. Small details like which side of the label is applied can make a difference with regard to the effectiveness of the sterilization process and whether the label stays on the product. In the last hour, Valerie discovered that wrong labels were applied to only half of the inner pouches. The other half had the correct label. Normally, Lorelei only verifies labels from one printer, but because production ran both label printers, the second printer needed to be verified as well, and that wasn't done. Therefore, the ladies had solved the mystery of all 5 problems. There was no label monster, and the CAPA plan could be easily written for each of the 5 problems. They had time to order lunch before they started their CAPA plan. Natalie received a $1,000 bonus from Mr. Kubrick, and everyone was able to enjoy Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it.